This is also a time of change for my family.
King Charles III unexpectedly flips a Cold War-era kill switch at Sandringham by hand, completely isolating the royal servers from the outside world. In the digital darkness, the king uses a Victorian cipher to execute an emergency codicil before 3 supreme witnesses, officially unleashing an unprecedented, devastating financial disinheritance. According to leaked sources, the new clause automatically strips all inheritance rights from any member residing overseas for more than 5 years, a direct blow leaving Prince Harry completely disinherited. Princess Diana's legendary ruby tiara is instantly locked inside a glass display at the Tower of London under state property status, while the entirety of Harry's private correspondence falls into Prince William's hands. Even William is stunned to discover his biometric codes deactivated at the security gate as the king decides to freeze all family working capital. Will Prince Harry accept ending up empty-handed, or will he gamble on a legal battle when the risking cost is having his entire private tax record exposed to Parliament? How will Prince William respond upon realizing his own financial autonomy has also been stripped away? And could anyone possibly overturn a ruthless institutional verdict that has been flawlessly sealed? In the final days of 2025, the Sandringham estate was blanketed in the thick signature fog of Norfolk. Everything seemed to follow the tranquil, everyday cadence of royal life until an emergency maintenance alert surfaced on the monitoring systems of the National Data Technology Center. The issue did not stem from a cyber attack or an external connection glitch. The signal loss occurred completely abruptly from inside the palace. Within the king's private dressing room, a chamber deep inside Sandringham's West Wing corridor, a brass physical kill switch manufactured during the Cold War had been flipped by hand. This was a primitive manual circuit breaker designed to fully isolate the royal family's internal communication system from the national telecommunications network in the event of a nuclear war or a coup. The moment the switch was thrown, all servers situated at Sandringham morphed into a completely isolated island of data. Every data stream sent or received by advisory offices, fund management firms, and even the personal phones of senior royals was halted dead in its tracks. At the same time, at the Privy Council headquarters in London, Prince Edward, who was chairing a special audit committee tasked with reviewing the Windsor family's assets, noticed a bizarre anomaly on his monitoring screen. The Royal Land database suddenly triggered an automated biometric lock. All access codes for administrative staff, legal counsel, and even senior aides to the Prince of Wales were denied authorization. Prince Edward immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. This loss of connectivity was no mere technical glitch. It was an intentional information strike executed by the only person possessing the ultimate cipher and knowing the precise location of the Cold War switch, King Charles III. The king was actively severing all external oversight to carry out a sequence of maneuvers on private financial agreements that no one, not even the official heir Prince William, could intervene in or monitor in real time. Inside the dimly lit dressing room at Sandringham, King Charles III stood before an antique oak desk. No personal secretaries were present. There were no computers or modern electronic devices. On the desktop rested only ancient archived files and a fountain pen. By throwing the network kill switch, the king had reverted the entire royal governance system back to the pre-digital era, where only handwritten signatures, red wax seals, and living witnesses held the power to establish authority. Prince Edward urgently requested a direct connection to Sandringham via a secure landline, but the line returned only endless, hopeless dial tones. Complete isolation had been established. A quiet yet utterly ruthless financial plan was beginning to unfold behind the palace's closed doors. The moment he noticed the anomaly from the biometric lockdown, Prince Edward wasted no time. As head of the special audit team, he knew that every major royal financial operation was bound to leave traces in archival history, even if the current network system had been severed. Edward began a deep review of audit records spanning decades. He accessed an independent financial backup system housed at the Diocesan Registry Office in Norwich, an ancient religious and legal archive outside the control of modern commercial server systems. At the same time, he cross-referenced every single line of figures against the historical accounting ledgers of the Windsor family's investment funds. After hours of meticulously scanning every page of original documents, Edward uncovered the existence of a secret legal mechanism. This mechanism had been established in mid-2021 under the direct instruction of the late Queen Elizabeth II. At the time, sensing that rising geopolitical risks and escalating internal strife could jeopardize the survival of the institution, the Queen had quietly embedded an escape clause. This hidden clause stipulated the reigning monarch holds full authority to restructure, reallocate, or freeze all private royal investment funds and personal assets without requiring parliamentary approval or the consent of the Prince's Council, provided the action is taken under a state of emergency institutional threat. The evidence gathered by Prince Edward indicated that King Charles III had officially invoked this escape clause the very moment the network kill switch at Sandringham was flipped down. The king was exploiting this period of information blackout to enact sweeping alterations to the family's personal asset structure. The documents revealed that Charles's objective was not merely shuffling funds from one account to another. He was carrying out a large-scale reclassification of the entire accumulated wealth of the House of Windsor, built over centuries. Assets previously considered private estate inheritable by descendants were being systematically shifted into inviolable financial structures. Prince Edward cautiously extracted each backup record from Norwich. Every number, every timestamp indicated that the king's move had been long in the making. Leveraging Queen Elizabeth II's 2021 escape clause was a masterstroke of legal maneuvering, converting what appeared to be a unilateral personal decision into a lawful act grounded in his predecessor's last wishes. The shock deepened as Edward grasped the sheer scale of the blow. There was no leak to the media, no appearance of high-priced London attorneys. King Charles III was single-handedly redrawing the family's financial map in the absolute silence of a network-severed room. Word of the biometric lockdown and the isolation at Sandringham swiftly reached Kensington Palace. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, instantly realized something extraordinary was directly threatening his rights and those of his children. William rushed by car from London to Sandringham under the cover of night. However, as his convoy reached the main security gate of the estate, the automated barrier failed to lift. The biometric scanning screen at the checkpoint flashed in glowing red text, "Access revoked by sovereign command." The official heir to the throne was halted right outside his family's gates. All of William's facial and fingerprint authentication codes were rejected by the system. Accompanying William on this trip was Princess Charlotte. Though only 11 years old, Charlotte possessed a natural sharpness regarding family affairs. While William made heated yet futile calls to Sandringham's landline, Charlotte sat in the back seat, opening a briefcase filled with excerpts of royal governance agreements that Prince Edward had just forwarded via a backup secure network. With remarkable focus, the young princess scanned through pages dense with archaic legal terminology. Charlotte suddenly paused at a page stamped with Victorian royal governance emblems. She pointed her finger at a crown symbol superimposed over an oak tree motif, an ancient administrative marking used exclusively when a private asset was demoted in status or permanently transferred into a public trust. "Father, look at this," Charlotte said, her voice calm, yet carrying a monumental discovery. "This isn't a standard asset division record. This symbol means the asset is permanently locked." William snatched the document from his daughter's hand. In-depth financial analysis from his accompanying team of private advisors immediately validated Charlotte's finding King Charles III was executing a brutally destructive reallocation scheme. The king was not merely locking down private funds, he was directly threatening the financial independence of future generations. The entire liquid cash flow from royal real estate and investment portfolios was being withdrawn from the personal control of the princes, compressed tightly into a centralized management mechanism controlled entirely by the crown. William stood before the Sandringham security gate, fists clenched. He realized his father was not only targeting Harry, but was also completely stripping away his own financial autonomy for when he would eventually ascend the throne. Edward's investigation and Charlotte's sharp revelation had exposed the full extent of the legal snare, King Charles III was laying inside that network-isolated room. In Montecito, California, a tense atmosphere engulfed Prince Harry's estate. Alerted by whispered rumors from London regarding a massive financial upheaval at Sandringham, the legal advisory team representing Harry's interests, led by Attorney Colin, acted immediately. Attorney Colin drafted and dispatched an urgent inquiry letter to the Royal Household Property Management Office in London. The text demanded clarification on Harry's beneficiary status regarding family reserve funds and inheritances connected to the estates of Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. Colin believed that as the king's second son, Harry possessed an indefeasible legal right to these resources. However, the institutional faction in London, under the direction of the Prince of Wales, retaliated without hesitation. Upon receiving the query from Montecito, William initiated a comprehensive audit and reconciliation of property agreements. It was precisely at this moment that a deadly detail from the past was brought into play. King Charles III had exploited a hidden subclause buried deep within the 2023 Highgrove lease agreement, a document William had signed as the sole legal heir of the Duchy of Cornwall. This subclause stipulated that, should there be any change in the legal status or beneficiary rights of family members concerning duchy assets, the reigning monarch holds the unilateral right to reclassify all working capital belonging to the Duchy of Lancaster. By triggering this hidden subclause, King Charles III executed an extraordinarily audacious financial maneuver. He ordered the complete withdrawal of the Duchy of Lancaster's massive liquid capital from commercial banks. Instead of leaving these funds to generate returns or be distributed among family members, the king transferred the entire capital into a permanent restoration fund. This fund was established with a singular fixed purpose to finance the conservation and restoration of the state apartments at Windsor Castle and the Palace of Holyrood House in Scotland. With a shrewd legal maneuver, King Charles III converted hundreds of millions of pounds in working capital financial resources that could have enabled future generations to maintain independent lives or private investments into a sum permanently frozen within the stone walls of state palaces. No one, including William or Harry, could withdraw a single penny from this fund for personal use. Attorney Colin in Montecito was left utterly powerless upon receiving a copy of the 2023 Highgrove subclause. The king's move rendered completely void every legal argument Harry's side intended to deploy. Montecito's long-distance strike had walked right into a trap laid upon documents signed by the family members themselves. Events progressed toward a decisive climax at Sandringham under absolute secrecy. The network kill switch remained down, rendering the palace an entirely airtight information fortress. King Charles III sat at his desk before him, an emergency codicil hand-drafted on premium parchment. To guarantee maximum security and prevent any interference from digital analysis algorithms, the king handwrote the entire codicil using a Victorian cipher system, a form of substitution cipher, once utilized by the British royal family for secret diplomatic correspondence in the 19th century. Every line of cipher written was a carefully calculated legal killing blow. However, for a codicil to hold permanent validity and remain utterly irrevocable by any court under the Wills Act 1837 of the United Kingdom, the document strictly required the in-person witness signatures of 3 independent witnesses at the precise moment of execution. Charles had quietly arranged for these 3 supreme witnesses to arrive at Sandringham prior to throwing the network switch. Justice Sarah Aspin, one of the most senior judges of the High Court, renowned for her unyielding adherence to classical legal principles. John Baker, Registrar of the Diocese of Norwich, keeper of Norfolk's ecclesiastical legal seal. David Starkey, a preeminent royal historian who thoroughly understood every legal precedent and testamentary history of the House of Windsor across centuries. All 3 witnesses stood solemnly in the dimly lit office. No recording devices or cameras were present. King Charles III decoded each passage before them, clearly explaining every clause and the rationale behind this action to safeguard the survival of the crown. After the king signed his name in Black India ink, Justice Sarah Aspin, Registrar, John Baker, and historian David Starkey stepped forward one by one to affix their signatures and personal seals onto the emergency codicil. The moment the final signature was placed, the entire file was placed inside a pouch sealed with red wax bearing the royal coat of arms. Avoiding standard couriers or digital channels, the sealed pouch was entrusted to a loyal guard detail transported directly via a specialized security motorcade to the Diocesan Registry Office in Norwich. In Norwich, the records were entered directly into the National Registry and locked away in a secure vault within minutes. All legal formalities had been completed lawfully, precisely, and irrevocably before anyone in London or Montecito could even realize what had transpired. The atmosphere inside the closed chamber at the High Court in London was stifling enough that every heavy breath echoed distinctly. The pale light of a Norfolk winter afternoon filtered through the narrow high windows, illuminating the long oak table where all involved parties had been urgently summoned to witness the unsealing of the monarchy's supreme financial document. There were no heated arguments, no presence of media lenses, no private side talk. Tension built to a fever pitch in a terrifyingly quiet space. Seated at the center was Queen Camilla. Dressed in deep blue, her face was as motionless as a frozen lake, betraying not a single shred of emotion. Positioned as a neutral observer in her role as Lola's grandmother, Camilla chose complete silence. She understood that any intervention or leaning toward either side would drag her own family into the vortex of retribution. Camilla's inherent silence served as the sturdiest shield, giving King Charles III free rein to execute his devastating financial blow. Facing the royal representatives was attorney Colin, head of the legal team representing Prince Harry's interests in Montecito. Colin had entered the room with an air of confidence, clutching a thick dossier of asset inquiries, prepared with arguments to reclaim an inheritance worth tens of millions of pounds alongside entitlements from Princess Diana's estate. But that confidence rapidly evaporated when Justice Sarah Aspin stepped into the room, bearing the red wax-sealed pouch stamped with the royal coat of arms, freshly delivered directly from the Diocesan Registry in Norwich. Justice Sarah Aspin sliced through the red wax, pulling out the emergency codicil that King Charles III had personally decoded from the Victorian cipher system. In the presence of Registrar John Baker and historian David Starkey, Justice Aspin began reading aloud each clause officially registered in the National Archives. Clause 1. Complete extinction of core inheritance rights. Justice Aspin's calm tone cut through the air like a blade severing Montecito's last hope. The clause explicitly stated automatic forfeiture of all rights to core estate assets, family reserve funds, and personal inheritance streams for any member continuously residing outside the United Kingdom for more than 5 consecutive years. Attorney Colin's face drained of color instantly. The timeline was fixed precisely from 2020, the year Harry announced his departure from royal duties and relocated to the United States. By late 2025, that period spanned exactly 5 years. No wiggle room, no exceptions. With a single line of cipher, King Charles III stripped away his second son's entire financial foundation abroad, permanently reclaiming the massive inheritance that would have otherwise belonged to Harry. Clause 2. Asset reclassification. Diana's tiara, the MacGuffin. The shock in the room escalated further as Justice Aspin proceeded to the symbolic assets section. The most precious piece of jewelry, the legendary diamond and ruby tiara, once owned by Princess Diana, an object Harry had constantly sought to reclaim for his own family, was dealt a fatal legal blow. The codicil reclassified the ruby tiara from private inheritable asset to state diplomatic property. Immediately, it was severed from the family estate inventory and transferred directly to the permanent collection at the Tower of London. The tiara was locked tight behind the nation's protective reinforced glass, permanently out of reach for Harry, Meghan, or any individual within the House of Windsor. Clause 3. Transfer of all private archival heritage. The next emotional blow struck directly at Harry's personal secrets. All intellectual property rights control publishing and archiving authority over all of Harry's childhood letters, journals, and private school documents were officially stripped and transferred exclusively to the management of the Office of the Prince of Wales. Prince William stood leaning against the edge of the table, his deep eyes locked onto Attorney Colin. From this moment, the brother on the opposing side held every legal key to his younger brother's youthful secrets. Any attempt by Montecito to commercialize or publish those past vulnerabilities would be blocked instantly by William's supreme legal authority. Clause 4. Absolute legal leverage and blackmail mechanism. Sensing that the Montecito representatives were preparing to raise an objection, Justice Aspin proceeded to read the final binding clause, the most ruthless sanction appended to the bottom of the parchment. Should the disinherited party or any legal representative initiate any lawsuit or claim contesting this codicil, the entirety of the claimant's personal business records, private financial transactions, and tax liability details in both the US and the UK will automatically be fully exposed before Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. The room plunged into dead silence. The paper, trembling in Attorney Colin's hands, shook violently. King Charles III's maneuver was so lethally calculated that it eliminated every avenue of survival for the opposing side. If he accepted in silence, Harry lost his entire wealth, the tiara, and his personal archive. But if he dared file a claim, all of Harry's private financial books, secret loans, and intricate US tax filings would be laid bare before the public, plunging him into immediate scandal investigation and financial ruin. Attorney Colin snapped his dossier shut, looking up at Queen Camilla and Prince William, only to meet icy, unyielding gazes. There was no negotiation. The antagonist in Montecito had fallen completely into the snare of this silent power struggle, suffering the most humiliating and brutal actual loss without being able to utter a single word of protest. The king's legal checkmate closed the confrontation with the absolute surrender of the opposition. The institutional verdict officially closed every legal loophole, inflicting a brutal and permanent punishment on all parties involved. Not a single lawsuit or formal objection was dispatched from Montecito. The clause, threatening to expose Prince Harry's entire private tax records, financial obligations, and commercial loans before the British Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, exerted absolute control. For Harry, accepting defeat in silence was the sole option to salvage the final remnants of his media empire and personal reputation in the US. At the mansion in California, shock quickly morphed into profound bitterness. Harry realized he had completely lost his financial independence abroad. All reserve funding from family trusts was utterly severed due to the threshold of residing overseas for over 5 consecutive years. Beyond suffering the total loss of his core inheritance rights, this stripping blow also deprived him of Princess Diana's legendary diamond and ruby tiara, the piece Harry had hoped would serve as a symbol of family legacy for his children. Simultaneously in London, the physical lockdown procedure was executed with cold precision. Under the supervision of High Court representatives and the Privy Council, Diana's ruby tiara was sealed inside a specialized armored box and transported via armored vehicle under the guard of royal protection officers. It was delivered straight into a high-security reinforced glass display at the Tower of London, officially transitioning from personal property to state diplomatic property. From this point forward, no royal family member, whether Harry, William, or anyone else, possessed the right to borrow, relocate, or use it for personal purposes. The precious piece of jewelry, once tied to the memory of their late mother, was permanently institutionalized, becoming a museum exhibit under the protection of national law. The psychological punishment ran even deeper, as all intellectual property rights control and archiving authority over all of Harry's childhood letters, journals, and private school documents were officially transferred to the office of the Prince of Wales. Prince William, the brother on the opposing side, now held every legal key to his younger brother's most intimate past secrets. Any future effort from Harry's side to publish or commercialize those memories would be blocked instantly by William's absolute control. However, the Prince of Wales's victory came with a bitter price. As internal documents were disclosed, William was stunned to uncover the trap his father, King Charles III, had set for both of his sons. Channeling all working capital of the Duchy of Lancaster into a permanent restoration fund, reserved exclusively for Windsor Castle and the Palace of Holyrood House, completely crippled William's own financial autonomy upon his eventual accession to the throne. The massive cash flows that once allowed generations of heirs to maintain personal influence and operational independence were now compressed entirely into preserving state architecture. William inherited a power structure firmly secured on an institutional level, yet he himself was stripped of personal financial discretion. The sacrifice of future generations' financial freedom was the precise price the king forced his sons to pay in exchange for the monarchical institution's intact survival. In the background, Queen Camilla maintained absolute silence. By adhering to institutional neutrality and refraining from interfering in her husband's financial purging, she safeguarded her own standing and her private family's future, particularly that of her granddaughter Lola, amidst palace turmoil. As for Princess Charlotte, identifying the archaic governance mark in the dark at Sandringham, affirmed the sharp intellect of the next generation, while prematurely thrusting the 11-year-old into the harsh realities of internal dynastic power struggles. At Sandringham, upon receiving confirmation that the codicil had been permanently sealed in the National Registry at Norwich King, Charles III walked unhurriedly to his private dressing room. The king reached out and flipped the Cold War-era network kill switch back to its original position. Indicator lights on the royal servers blinked back to green. Digital network systems, data links, and biometric access at security gates were restored instantly. Calls, messages, and notifications inundated electronic devices once more. From the outside, everything seamlessly returned to the rhythm of everyday life, as though the isolation incident had never occurred. Yet the internal power dynamic of the House of Windsor was irrevocably altered. Through a series of ruthlessly calculated legal maneuvers, from throwing the isolation switch exploiting Queen Elizabeth II's escape clause, utilizing the hidden Highgrove subclause, to employing a Victorian cipher and summoning 3 independent witnesses under the Wills Act 1837, King Charles III had executed an absolute victorious unilateral financial reform. The Crown preserved its state assets and institutional legitimacy intact in the face of total opposition powerlessness. The bloodless war concluded with the silent surrender of Montecito, the financial subjugation of the heir in London, and the eternal isolation of royal relics behind glass walls. The survival of the dynasty was secured through the absolute power of the law, leaving behind a fractured family and deep, unhealable wounds. What does Prince William's loss of personal financial autonomy and 11-year-old Princess Charlotte's unexpected sharpness hint at regarding the future of the monarchy? Will Charlotte emerge as the next power player, or the institution's next defender? In a sea of videos, I am so glad YouTube managed to bring this one to you. We pour a tremendous amount of care into researching every single detail of these royal histories. I know using a TV remote takes a little extra time, but your like and subscription are the ultimate motivation for our team to keep creating careful, high-quality stories for your screen. Thank you so much for your support,